Welcome everybody to Eye of the Serpent Tarot, to part 3 of the Lightning Path series. So if this is the first of the series that you've come across, you've just sort of seen the title and interested, it is actually part of a 4-part series that is looking at the purest essence of you from when you were a divine spark through to how you're manifesting in your life at the moment, your soul purpose and so forth. So you don't have to, you might only be interested in this particular topic, but I would advise maybe going and listening to the other two. And if you're listening to this when it's first published, there's a 4th episode that will come out in another week's time. So I would encourage most to see the whole of the series, but that's up to you. If you have been with me for the others in the series, you'll know that we've looked at your divine essence to start with. We've also then explored the idea of you, a kind of paradigm construct of what your soul energy, your soul essence is. And as I said at the end of part 2, part 3 is we're now heading into the 3rd world, and that world is the world of formation. It's about your psyche. It is called Yezirah, and this is if you looked upon the divine spark as being your essence, looked upon the idea as being a kind of paradigm of your soul and your spirit, this is the energy of your psyche. And it's the element of the first reading of the divine spark is fire. The element of the idea of you was fairly obviously air. This energy is more around water. And in terms of the angelic energy we've been looking at, part 2 was around the archangels. This is around the angels. So you sort of like you're coming closer and closer to earth as you go through this, in terms of going through the Sephiroth, going down from Kether to Malkuth. So this is the energy about the psychology of you. That's really what we're going to be exploring here, how you connect your sense of beauty, balance and so forth with what it is that you would want to achieve in this life. What would it be psychologically for you to have had a successful life? That's the kind of energy that we're going to be looking at. And so we'll look at various aspects that bring that balance and so forth. We will look at 2 particular Sephiroth, one being Sephiroth, which is the Sephiroth of beauty and joy and Christ consciousness and all of that kind of thing. And then the Psyche, which is the Sephiroth of victory, what it is to succeed, what it is to be victorious. So they're the particular Sephiroth that we'll be looking at in terms of how your psychology is formed. The 4th episode will be really where the rubber hits the road, where you bring that into your life path, your connection to the divine and what you're going to manifest on earth. So it's getting increasingly psychological as we go, and this will be fairly psychological, and then the next one will be very much about the connection of the psyche to action and to what you create. So that's the journey. So we are hitting the point where your individual personality is becoming more and more important in this. Hopefully you're enjoying the journey so far. I did say in the others you don't have to have been following the same pile all the way through. You might have chosen to do that. I don't feel for this one, like in the soul activation, it's quite as important, but certainly what I am saying in all of them is choose one particular pile for this particular video. You can watch the others if you want and look at other elements that resonate too, but choose one, because I think it's really important to anchor to one of them and see what the key messages are. So I also have homework that I have put into this. If you've seen the other 2, you know it. And it is to try and anchor this in things that resonate to you. So for the first reading, it was to connect to a melodic line, music or lyrics or something like that. And the second one, it was something like poetry or something you'd read in a book. This is the area with Sephiroth of the great creativity and the great form and the great beauty, and it's also the emotion. I'm feeling there that a visual hook is something that would be very useful to connect to. So, if there is a particular painting that you love, or just looking out your window, if there's some sort of sense of expansion and joy that you get in doing that, something that artistically brings you joy, try and make sure you look at it each day between now and when you look at the next when you see the last of this series, because I feel like in our visual field, in all the color and the glory and the beauty of whatever it is that we find and we connect to that is beautiful, that is an image that you can draw to. Now, it may even be for some of you that if you've done things like shamanic journeying or meditation, there's a particular place you go to or an image that you see. You can go within to see the image. It doesn't have to be something that you're looking at in the external world, but the thing is the visualization. So that's what I would suggest to do, to anchor this, to anchor that energy to your psyche and to the form of you in the world. Okay, so beyond that, you need to choose your pile. So for the first, we're looking here with some archetypes of energies that could be your essences. We've been looking at it coming into a psychological profile. For pile number 1, we have the warrior. For pile number 2, we have the challenger. And for pile number 3, we have the healer. So one of those may draw to you particularly, or you may be doing a through line through a particular pile. That's fine. But when you know what reading or readings you want to go to, the timestamps, as always, are in the description box below, and I'll see you there. Welcome, pile 1, to your reading. So you came to the reading with the warrior. So I really like that energy. I like all the energies of all 3 of the cards that came out with the Oracle of the Roses here, but I feel like this collective that I'm reading for, there are a lot of spiritual warriors and sort of social justice warriors and people that are going, and I mean that in its most pure sense, not in a sort of politicized way it is, people who want to actually see a better world and more harmony and a whole range of things that are very positive. So I think whatever pathway you've come down in the lightning path so far, whatever you saw in pile 1 and pile 2, it's distilling in you a cause, something that you would fight for, something that matters enough to you. In fact, that is your sort of generative principle, that you will fight for what is right. You will fight for what is precious to you, whether it's love, family, community, a belief structure, a spiritual thing. You very much are ready to go in and do the work. You are not sort of sitting back and waiting for other people to sort it all out and hoping they will. You're right in the thick of it. That's your energy. So the 2 Sephiroth that we're looking at here to try and get a sense of your psychology, it's a balance of what you find beautiful and connective and freeing, all those sort of like harmonious energies. We look at Tiphereth. Tiphereth is in what they call the middle pillar, which is the balance between the 2 sides of the Kabbalah. So Tiphereth is often called the brother. It's also called the Christ consciousness. Your energy for there is St. Anthony. So St. Anthony worked with St. Francis of Assisi. This is about reclaiming what is beautiful, caring for others. There's a very strong social conscience energy for you with this. Any connection to St. Anthony or St. Francis has that sort of feeling to it. You would be a warrior for what was beautiful in the social construct and for reclaiming the connection to the divine on the material world. So you are probably more a spiritual warrior than a social warrior, but I think there would be kind of a combination of the 2 with you. And that is a very beautiful energy around what it is that brings everything into balance. There's a great kindness to that. So it's a lovely sort of personality aspect of wanting to do that kind of thing. The other aspect of St. Anthony that really fits with the warrior is that he was known for being fiercely protective, a protective energy, particularly for the poor and for children, anybody who was vulnerable in any way. There certainly has been a bit of a through line in this for people who are drawn to a protective energy and are caring for others. So I think you will have seen that through line in the series if you've seen the other episodes of it. But that is what is beautiful to you, protecting the vulnerable, protecting the weak, being connected to the divine, service to others. Then how you can best manifest, and Psyche is how you can best manifest in your personality, in the way that you do things, the victory, what it would be to be truly you. And we have we have Isaac Newton, so discovery, bringing in the new, having solutions, a solutions-based approach, a scientific-based approach as well too. It's an alchemical feeling, the management or the connection of the scientific world and the magical world. There's sort of something here that you get your best outcomes if you marry both an understanding of science and history and all of those sort of like very intellectual properties with the heart energy of St. Anthony here to be a warrior for the truth and for the new and for the innovation. So what you certainly don't want to do as a personality is stay stuck in belief patterns and so forth that may serve a status quo but are not serving the vulnerable and are not serving innovation, discovery, all of that kind of thing. So there is a deeply creative aspect in you as well. Your psychology is to find new solutions to things, to be a warrior maybe just as much in terms of in the mind and in influence and so forth as it is in any sort of more physical way. And to do that in the service of the balance and beauty of caring for others. So it's a really, really nice energy that you're bringing in psychologically. You really want to support and help others, but also support progress and get the balance right for those two things. So let's see what other aspect of the Sephiroth might be important along with Tiphereth and Sark to your personality as it manifests in your psyche, as a psyche of a warrior for truth, innovation, progress, but in a way that protects the vulnerable. Hod. So this is connecting to your life path. You are meant to do this. This is how you connect back to the divine, by your service to others, by innovation, moving things forward. Reason and clarity very much connects to Isaac Newton. So there's very much the sense that the scientific side of things, the understanding of things in terms of logic is very, very important. Mercury makes it extremely important how you communicate with others. As I said, I feel like you are sort of psychologically the kind of the writers, the journalists, the narrators, the ideas people of the world. That's how you help others. That's how you move innovation. That's how you're a warrior of the keyboard. You're a warrior of the pen. The pen is mightier than the sword, as they say, those sorts of energies. And it connects you to the true splendor. This is what Hod is about, of following your life path. So this is saying whatever you looked at in your first set of readings for this, if you went to part 1, whatever that first idea is, it will be best manifest psychologically for you in a combination of using a scientific and magical form of inquiry to bring innovation in a way that it fights for those that are disadvantaged. For you, that would be the most splendiferous way of actually manifesting who you are, and you have a very, very strong sense that that is who you are. So what we're going to do is we're going to use tarot, and we're going to use the Mythos tarot because, again, if you went to part 2, you'll know that I brought us into part 3 using the Greek Mythos oracle. So this is a tarot that's based on Greek mythology. The reason I wanted to use it is we are talking about psychology here, like the balance of your psychology, the sort of form of your paradigm into a psychology. And so this to me is a very good distillation of that. I think that the Greek and Roman pantheon are an incredible way of describing human nature and human psychology. So hence why I wanted to use this particular deck. So we're going to have a look at, firstly, what is the ultimate, firstly we're going to look at what would be beauty and balance for you. Then we're going to look at what would be the ultimate victory of you in bringing that into being. And so this is kind of the consensus perception of you, how people see you, and this is what you would want to bring forward as well. So it's sort of like the beauty that you bring and the beauty you would want to bring in, and this is how you could be victorious. So we want to look at those, and then we want to see how this balances together, particularly as Tiphereth also operates as part of the middle pillar, to bring the most balanced personality in this incarnation. So let's first of all look with Tiphereth around in its sort of form just as a Sephiroth rather than the middle pillar balance. What do we get here that tells us about your personality? What brings that into beauty, into balance, into that sense of supporting those that are less fortunate, that kind of energy? We have the Emperor. We have the Fool reversed. And we have the Chariot. Okay. Just going to put down the ones for Nasak as well before we talk about this. So for Nasak, this is you in victory, your personality, your psyche achieving what it is trying to achieve. We have the Six of Cups, the Five of Coins reversed, the Page of Swords reversed. Okay, this is something about bringing more clarity to communication. You really are a communicator, I have to say. It's a very big part of this. So you are actually meant to have some form of leadership role. And whether that's been sort of like coming up, there is at least one from the first episode of this that was very much about leadership. I think there's a through line here if you followed that through. But you're certainly meant to have a kind of sense of leadership around this. Your protection and your warrior energy is the warrior knight or the warrior king. You're not afraid to go into battle for what matters to you. You're very well aware of this terrain and how to do it. In fact, I think that you may have had many lives where you have literally been a warrior or something like that, or a king, like something like that. So you know this terrain. But this time around with the Chariot, with connecting to your life path, with Mercury, with Apollo, creative ways of doing things. You're looking at creative ways to bring beauty. I mean, Apollo is very sort of sun energy, so it's very Sephiroth on that level. It is about inspiration. It is about beauty on that sort of level. It's about creativity. So I feel as though part of what's happening for your psyche at the moment is that you're taking the warrior energy to protect others out of the traditional battlefield and into the realm of influence. So I think, again, how you communicate, social influence in some way, political influence, cultural influence. This is how you actually are going to best manifest that psychology of what you want to do in this world. It's not on the battlefield. It's not even on the chessboard, really. It's in the theatre. It's in the literature. It's in the poetry, all of that kind of thing. And then how you get victory, connecting the innovation. So with this creativity, firstly, it is really understanding the past with the Six of Cups. It's not throwing away that which was useful. It's taking that forward as a memory, as an inspiration in some way. With the Five of Coins reversed, it's connecting with other people. Like how do you make connections with other people? How do they feel included? It's how to be inclusive, really. And with the Page of Swords reversed, it's understanding where communication is false. There's a very strong feeling here, actually, of people who are dealing with the issues of censorship and that kind of thing that we're seeing at the moment, sort of on social media and that kind of thing. There's a warrior energy here about making sure that in the midst of all of that and in the midst of innovation and change, that we don't lose the heart of protecting the most vulnerable. We don't sacrifice that in any way for wins on the chessboard, so to speak. We remember the lessons of history, we connect to community, and we create an influence towards that. So, as I say, I think in other lives, you may well have been a warrior or a king, in a medieval battle or something, but this time around, you've actually understood that in this world, it's all about communication, culture, creativity. That's where you can connect people, get rid of the sort of censorship and the difficulty that's in the world, and connect to your higher self and your spiritual connection or your spiritual pathway. And so a little bit leaning on Sephiroth again, but more now about the middle pillar. Like the middle pillar is coming from Kether to Sephiroth. It is like the best distillation of the balance of the psyche. How does these two sides, the side that is a creative warrior and the side that is an innovator that does not throw away the past and does not let censorship and so forth stop them, how does this marry together to your essential purpose and to the balance within your psyche? We have the Two of Swords reversed, the Ten of Wands, sorry, I've just moved those up a bit so that you can see them a bit more clearly. The Queen of Coins and the Ace of Wands reversed. Now, it's really interesting Hephaestus turned up, because Hephaestus turned up for a couple of the piles in the last reading as the energy to bring it through. And what that was saying was that the skills, abilities, knowledge and so forth that the people had, like in terms of forming your psyche, you needed to understand that you may have felt less worthy than you should feel because you were much more sort of skilled and ready for whatever it was. So it's interesting that here it's coming up reversed. So I think that what this is saying, this is about the warrior that shifts into the new from the old, but protects others in doing it. That's what your psychology is all about. We've got the Two of Swords reversed, Nemesis reversed. It's a sense that you don't have to have all the answers. If you're going to be in an innovation and new energy, you're creating, and you're often creating ahead of knowing what the outcome is. This is why it's important that a balancing energy with Sephiroth is, how do we care for others? If we don't know what world we're creating completely, because we aren't all seers and we don't all know, and even if you are a seer, you can't ultimately know how free will is going to impact on a multitude of things in creating something in the world. If we can't know that, how do we actually move forward? How do we not make too much of a burden? How do we not slow things down? How do we not make everything a battle when it doesn't need to be a battle? And this has to do with releasing the creative energy that has not been fully released, believing in the creative vision even if we don't know all the answers yet, and being loyal to the vision. Queen of Coins, she is loyal to the vision. But there's a secondary message in this because Rhea has come up as Queen of Coins on a psychological level, because Rhea was the wife of Kronos. And that is about a new world coming in very definite terms, and the protection of the new world. We put these two things together. Granted, this is not Zeus, but she was the mother of Zeus. So basically, what happened with Rhea and Kronos, or Saturn, depending upon, I always get mixed up which ones are with which, but I think it's Rhea with Kronos. Kronos was the kind of master of the universe before Zeus. Zeus was his son, and he had a prophecy that his reign would be ended by something new. So if you have a look at some of this, like what could be ended by something new when we don't know what we're heading towards. So he used to eat his children, basically. So the concept here is that Rhea said when Zeus was born, I'm not going to have that happen. She gave Kronos a stone wrapped up in swaddling clothes, so he thought he was swallowing his child, and he went away on his happy way, and Zeus was able to grow up and eventually bring in the new regime. This is protecting, with the Ace of Wands reverse. I know it's Hephaestus there, but we have Zeus over there. The new idea, being loyal to and protecting it when we're moving from one regime to another. So the people here, psychologically, you're here for a reason. You have a very good balance. You have a very brilliant way of communicating that will really help you with this, and you are innovative and prepared to do it, but you're also prepared to protect at all costs the new world, the new ideas, and the vulnerable, not the despotic people in power, but the vulnerable. So that's how you bring it together, to be loyal to the new thing, and to be not too burdened about exactly what it's all going to be, but be just loyal to the concept and let it all form as it's supposed to naturally form, and kind of almost alchemically form when we look at Isaac Newton there. So let's use the Magical Correspondences Tarot just to see what other Sephirotic connections there are for this psyche, your psyche, and how it's being formed for your path. We have the Knight of Swords, so yeah, very fast mind, very great communication, connecting to Sephiroth. So your communication, your mind, your understanding, the speed at which you can move, the new ideas, and moving before you know everything, and being brave enough to do that. That's a big part of this for you. And we have the Ten of Wands again, and that connects to Malkuth. So where there is a burden for this, or where there is a burden you're trying to deal with, it is in the material world. It's using the intelligence to remove that burden. It's like bringing something real in that helps others rather than just something theoretic. You don't want to just sort of sit and talk about high-minded spiritual concepts. You want to create something new in the world that helps those that are less fortunate. And you have the speed of mind and the intelligence of mediating influences, it says, to be able to do that. But I think you do it creative. You do it by inspiring others. You do it by communication. So one of the things in terms of balance I want to look at is the balance of the masculine and the feminine, because those energies are important to our psyche as well. So we're just going to get a divine feminine energy and a divine masculine energy to show how that's operating in the forming psyche to create this spiritual and social warrior. So in terms of feminine energy, you are manifesting yin ajna, open mind, non-knowing, change of mind, the capacity to sort of move through what isn't known. So, and to be in the space of discovery. That is your kind of creative energy, is to be open to that and to be not too caught in the mind. You have the intelligence, but to be open to the new. And then the masculine energy within your psyche. This came up reverse, so I'm going to put it down reverse. You are not a coward. You're anything but a coward, actually. So, but it's interesting because some may misunderstand that. They may think when you are in a place of non-knowing, you are maybe your psychology primarily moves towards the new by asking the questions, stimulating the dialogue, that kind of thing, rather than coming up with the answers. And some may misunderstand that for not being brave to say what your viewpoint is. But I think you're keeping the dialogue open, the creativity open, and you're seeing what other people want. You're inclusive, all of those sort of things. You feel like, like a famous podcaster or something who brings a diverse view of opinions in and lets the dialogue do the working. Some may say of someone like that, well, what do they really believe? But that's not the point. You're not impinging that on others. But you would have a through line under all of it, a drumbeat under all of it, which would be to protect those that are vulnerable and to keep change open and speech open. You'd be a freedom of speech sort of advocate as well. Okay, so let's have a look at some messages from the archangels that are associated with these two Sephiroth. So for Sephiroth, we have two. We have Archangel Michael and Archangel Raphael. And for Nesak, we have Haniel. So I feel like I want 3 cards so that Michael and Raphael get 1 card each plus a joint message, and then 2 cards for Haniel over here. So when we are looking at Sephiroth, which, as I say, also combines the sort of energy of both what you find beautiful and what you would find most connected to your heart energy and all of that kind of thing, and also the balance of your psychology. What we get is the world, strength. Wow, that makes sense with Michael. The star reversed. Okay, all right. So the message here is that your strength, your heart center is your strength. You are very strong. You are very strong, and you're very, very caring and very healing. There is an old world to complete, a new world to birth. This is what this is about for you. It's not about you, though. You don't make it about you, and it's one of your strengths. One of the reasons that you can almost have moral high ground is you don't make it about you. This is what I'm saying. I sort of feel like I'm looking at, I can think of a very famous podcaster, for instance, that would fit this energy. And you could kind of know what he believes about things, but he's very open-minded. I'm thinking of Joe Rogan. And although he's a star and he's huge, he makes it about the other people and he makes it about the ideas. I feel like there's a very similar energy that you have. You don't have to agree with him on anything. Half the time it's hard to really know what he really believes, because he does let the other people talk. So there's something in that. There's this beautiful generosity that you have, and your strength is that you're about the bigger picture issues, not about you. It's not about ego for you. And then when we look at, therefore, what will bring you victory, what Haniel wants to say to you. And look, that's 3 major arcana cards. Like, this is pretty big what you have to do in the world. You know that. Pile 1. For Haniel, we have 9 of Pentacles and 2 of Cups. You may feel sometimes, because you are on the edge of the new, that you are a bit alone. So that is something to be aware of. Always go back to the connection that you have to your heart center. These archangels will be very strongly with you, but there is a sense that this is a pathway that only you can really lead and do. You have to lead out. You have to do that. You're not about ego at all, but you do have to understand that this is something that only really you can do. You've come in with the warrior spirit, the ability, the communication, the balance, and the caring for others that makes this possible. So, and I think that part of what you're trying to do with that, Haniel is saying, is find a way to reconnect people who have been dispossessed. Actually, I think that's part of it as well. You're really all about that on one level or another. So that's very beautiful, actually. So let's have a look at the planetary energies. We will do the planetary energies first. Planetary energies for this. So So when we're talking about Sephiroth, we're talking about the sun, your life path, that kind of thing. And when we're talking about Nasak, we're talking about Venus. So there's a heart energy and a love and a beauty energy associated with that as well. So we are looking at the sun and Venus. So firstly, let's see how astrology connects with your sun, your life path, and the Sephiroth sort of energy of what would be a beautiful life path for you. We have the second house, so what you're creating in the material world, Sagittarius, freedom, and Neptune, an idealist. You want to create an ideal world. This is like, you really do want to create that. And I think you want to share it with others. You want to liberate resources and so forth to bring about the ideal world for everybody rather than, a life of privilege for some and struggle for others. So that's how you connect. You connect your idealism to that cause. And then in terms of Venus, your heart energy and how that actually will help you win. 10th house, so this is in your career. You are meant to be seen. Jupiter, you're meant to expand the lives of others, expand our thoughts, all of that kind of thing. And Sagittarius, again, it's all about freedom. You're all about freedom. You're about freedom of speech, freedom of thought, freedom of creativity, all of those sort of things. Very, very important to your psychology and to how you manifest yourself in the world. Okay. So let's have a look, as we have been looking in all of them, with the Oracle of Heaven and Hell about areas for each of these Sephiroth which are going to work well for you, which is the angelic energy, and what might be a challenge for you, which is the sort of demonic alternative, the kind of mirror demonic energy, which is not to say, as I've said in all of them, it's not to say demons are coming in or anything. This is more about the psychology of what liberates us and what constrains us. So when we are looking at Sephiroth, so we're looking at the sort of like the heart energy, the connection to St. Francis and St. Anthony, the big thing that you're meant to do in the world, we have Ha, which is protection. So yeah, this is Michael, you protect. You really do protect people. There is a big through line from at least one of the other readings around protection, so maybe you've come from that. But you're very protective. Your heart energy is protective. You're not going to bring in something new that is devastating to those, particularly to those that most need protection. Now, the challenge for that is Naborius, which is criminal enterprises. So I think that many of you, because I think you are sort of social warriors, you're spiritual warriors, you're in the communications field, you're in all of that kind of thing, you may sometimes come up against, when you are protecting others, those who are exploiting. So this may be part of what you're here to do, which is to I don't think you have a risk of being in criminal enterprises, but I think you may come across that sort of energy on occasion in terms of your protective nature. Then when we look at how you have victory, we have Nithael, rejuvenation, being able to, bring out the new. Remember we had the memory. It's not throwing away the past. It's rejuvenating and bringing into something new. And it's also being able to rejuvenate your own energy, particularly when you're dealing with battles and so forth. The challenge energy is murmur, overthrowing of authority. So the issue here, as it is with any warrior, anybody who's bringing in the new, is not just to throw out the past in a way that is not useful or to make it an ego thing where it's all about being the one who is now the new emperor. This is not, even with Zeus or whatever, Zeus was not meant to be like, oh, now I'm just king and that's it. It was meant to be a better environment. When King Arthur pulls the sword, Excalibur out of the stone, is to bring in something better. But there is always a thing when you're a warrior. It's like that saying, that Nietzschean saying about when you look into the abyss, it looks into you. There's that you always have to balance. Okay. So that is actually a good point to say what we're going to do to bring you into the fourth and last part of this series. So in each of these, I've used one card from an oracle deck to bring us into that stage. And because we have been talking about the formation of the psyche and we've dealt a bit with ego around this, ego really hits the ground running when we hit to the next one, which is about the actual manifestation, the material world. Because if we are ever going to be tested for our ego and how it balances us and can be healthy and create what our spiritual pathway is, it's when we hit the material world. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shuffle the Ego Observer deck, which is a deck we will also use in part 4. It's a very psychologically oriented deck, I find, in terms of tarot. And I'm just going to deal out till I get a major arcana. And that major arcana is going to tell us something about both your ego's strength and your ego challenge, and what that is going to mean in the material world for you. So, judgment, wow. You've got big things you're meant to do. Your awareness of this, your awareness of what is necessary, your understanding of a calling, a sense that you definitely do have a calling. It's not just sort of like a sense of suspicions of destiny. You really do have it. All of that is really important. You know, the third eye being open, the diversity of colours in that, all of that fits with this energy. But of course, judgment can also be a double-edged sword, and it can be where we judge too harshly. We start to equate merit and truth with ourselves rather than with the cause and so forth. So this is a very honourable reading, I would have to say. You're a very honourable person. So I think you'll deal with this energy pretty well. But when you are in the material world, that's when we get tested. So there is something here about following your calling without making the calling all about you, making it more about a bigger purpose, and your judgment to be one of rejuvenation and inclusion, not of exclusion. So I hope that resonates for you. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in the fourth and final episode. Welcome, Pile 2, to your reading. So you came to the reading with the Challenger, which is a kind of similar energy in a way to Pile 1 with the Warrior, though it's playing out differently already, I can see here. I mean, there are some similarities, but there's some differences as well. Some of you may have come to both. The Challenger energy here, so if you've been in the first 2 episodes, you've seen your kind of spark of energy, spark of soul, then the kind of like the idea of you. This is now how this goes into your psyche. This is how your personality is really starting to form, to manifest and incarnate. And so you're coming in with an idea to challenge or change something. Like your psychology needs to almost pit itself against something to get to a greater degree of wisdom or understanding or something in that line. I think wisdom has a lot to do with it. But it's also partly to protect things that are precious and to make sure that things move on in a way that they need to. Your psyche is such that the last thing that you would like to see is a kind of status quo, everything being stuck, everything, you know, like a kind of rigid totalitarian type of world, for instance, would not work for you. You would always want to challenge and rebel against that because you would recognize that it was not taking us in the direction we needed to go. So there is a sense that you're coming in with a purpose, with a cause, ready to stand up against something, I feel. And you probably would be a natural person to be able to argue or debate, that kind of energy. Could have a bit of a political aspect to it, doesn't have to though. But you're the sort of person who, you know, in your childhood home, you would be likely to have argued if you didn't agree with what your parents were saying. Same thing in school, university, wherever. You do challenge the status quo. There's a lot to be said for that, but there is the need for wisdom. But I do think that you are very well aware of that with King Solomon over there. So these are the 2 Sephiroth we're looking at in relation to the third world, and the third world is around this sort of like the psyche, the world of form. So this is how we see how your soul is forming within, you know, to be ready to be incarnated. And the 2 Sephiroth we look at, first we look at Tifereth. Now Tifereth is looked at in this on 2 levels, because on one level, Tifereth is just simply the next Sephiroth we're looking at. It is the kind of Christ consciousness, heart, sun energy, creative energy, beauty, what is beautiful, what is joyous, all of those sort of things. So in terms of what your personality, your psyche is calling for in terms of beauty and joy in your life. But it's also one of the Sephiroth that are in what they call the middle pillar. So it's the balance of the 2 sides. You know, things like Binah and Yezirah, which we've looked at, and Chokmah and Hesed we've looked at, are on 2 opposite sides. Binah and the ones below that are the pillar of severity. Chokmah and the ones below that are the pillar of mercy. So this is the midpoint between the 2 that brings it into balance. So we also look at it in that kind of space, like what brings your psychology into balance. And then this is how would you win. Psyche is about victory. It's about how we win, how we succeed in truly manifesting in our psyche what it is that our soul wants. So it's not necessarily how do you win every battle, though for you there would probably be a bit of that. but I think it's just as much how are we victorious in being true to who we are, rather than falling by the wayside in, the sort of ego issues or other things, particularly once we get to Earth, which is sort of the next layer that we're going to look at. So for you, St. Christopher is a saint who actually carried the Christ child across a raging river. So this is protecting things that are precious. There is something in what you challenge which does have a core of protectiveness. That's, again, where it's a little bit similar to one of the other readings, I think. So there is some crossover here. But for you, it's like you would be like the knight who fought for a cause, for instance, or you would be like the gladiator who fought for a particular cause. It's like you're taking on a challenge to do that. It's not just the process of protecting, but it's actually being the person who challenges that which threatens something. So you're coming in with a kind of I'm going to be your knight, I'm going to be the one who battles as your energy, but it is in service of something beautiful, in service of something precious. And how you win is through your wisdom, King Solomon. So, and creating a legacy, creating something that follows on. You could literally be the challenger. Like, for some of you, you could be a challenger politically, and you actually win, and then you create a legacy, a new way of doing things, a better way of doing things potentially. It's just an example. But you create a legacy. You could be a challenger in terms of wisdom around, I don't know, a chess master or something. You challenge a chess master and you win. Something to do with wisdom, possibly high magic as well. For some of you, you may know and be able to use high magic because King Solomon was definitely that. But the main thing that we tend to know Solomon for is what they say, the wisdom of Solomon, to be able to balance things and understand what is the way. And it was the most famous thing that King Solomon is for is a very psychological thing, because people will probably know the story of the two women who come and both claim to be the mother of a baby. And so he says, okay, I'll chop it in half. And the true mother says, oh, no, she's the mother. And that's how he knew, because he understood the psychology. So there's something here about you understanding the wisdom of your psychology, your understanding of your opponent, your understanding of what is precious. All of this comes together. So I think your personality is about taking on a bit of a battle, but it is in the service of something precious, and it is done in a wise way. So let's have a look and see what other Sephiroth might be important at this part of the formation of your psyche. Pile 2. Yezirah. Okay, so discipline, that makes sense. The discipline, the sort of like stoicism, the stick with it, the energy, the courage, that all fits with the challenger. Mars with action, you take action, you do stuff. This is not something that is just contemplative. You don't sort of sit and watch the world and think it could be put to rights if it just did what you wanted. You actually get out there and you're in the arena. That's why I was getting the sense of the gladiator or whatever. You're the person in the arena. Might, conscience, will and power. This is what you bring into being to do what is necessary. And that kind of self-discipline is very, very strong in you. You have a very strong energy of self-discipline and so forth. Very powerful person, but it's like you may well end up in some sort of leadership position, but it is more in the service of protecting something precious and a legacy than it is. In fact, I'm getting like some of you may have been, a regent who if a king died and their son or their daughter were too young to take on the thing, you become in a sense the regent who carries the legacy on. It's sort of, it doesn't feel like it's about you being the boss. It feels like about you challenging what is necessary to create the right outcome. That's what it feels like. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to have a little bit of a look at this with tarot. We're going to use the Mythos tarot because I deliberately used the Greek Mythos oracle I had to bring us into this as the last card in the second of the series. So I want to carry on that tradition of using Greek mythology to have a look at the sort of psychological side of this. So we're going to have a look firstly at Sephiroth in its form as what is beautiful and joyful to you, that is part of your psyche, and then there's Sark, what is the part of your psyche that can win, that would see victory, and what does that mean? Then we're going to look at combining it and this is how you could be perceived by others, this is how you are kind of seeing your own ultimate you and so forth. And then we're going to see the connection between the two, which particularly leans back to Sephiroth because it is in the middle pillar. So for Sephiroth, we have Ace of Coins, the Lovers reversed, Aphrodite reversed. Oh, that's interesting. And King of Wands, Kronos reversed. And then for King Solomon, we have the Six of Swords. We have the Magician reversed. Okay, well, that's interesting when we've got King Solomon there. And we have the Hierophant. Ooh, this is interesting. So, when we're looking at what is beautiful in your psyche, creating something new, protecting the precious thing, you know, like carrying the Christ child, the precious thing, the new beginning, the new world, whatever it might be. There's something here about protecting that and allowing it to come to what it should be. There is, however, in this the challenger makes sense. For you in this life, you are brought in to challenge old structures, old regimes, things that are not right. Because this energy is all about that. This is like the King of Wands reverse as Kronos. It was the old order, the old despotic god that Zeus eventually took over from. So the protection of the new energy. And then the Lovers reverse, where relationships are not good, where relationships are not caring, where relationships don't look after what is precious. There is something quite feisty about you, actually. Like, as your personality develops, there's something quite feisty, and this is to bring in something that is new and beautiful. But you will challenge anyone. You will challenge anyone. You're not worried about who you upset, and I don't think you do it unwisely. So I'm not sort of saying that you just like go around and cause huge problems without any thought. But you are not afraid of challenging old orders when it is necessary, because you're here to bring about peace. You're also here to bring about the spring energy. Eos is like spring. It's like the new, the sort of the peaceful, the moving forward and the beautiful. So you're going to do it. But boy, do you have to challenge yourself sometimes, pal, too. You really do, because you're very clever and you're very strong and you're very feisty. And they say they who fight monsters have to make sure they don't become the monster. Because you have King Solomon, who was one of the major magicians of the world. And then you have the Magician reversed here. And then you have the Hierophant, and the Hierophant is represented by Dionysus here, which is the kind of where is the stuff of life in what we believe. So I think that this is saying that this is why you need the Solomon-esque wisdom, because you are very clever. You are able to win most of the time. Most of the time, if someone comes up against you, they're not going to win, whether it's in a game or whether it's in life or whatever. You have to be very careful about the new world that you're creating, though, because you are creating a legacy, and your psychology is such that you do need to know when you don't have to battle anymore and when you can just be yourself. So it's very interesting. It's saying you do this. Wisdom is very important, because it's like anybody who is very good at influence, at debating, at challenging things or whatever it might be, while they have a thing to focus on and they do it, that's brilliant. But what happens once it's done? Once peace is achieved, one of the things you're really going to have to think about is, who are you then? And how do you make sure that, you know, the new order is not created in the way that the old one was? And how do you not end up using your abilities in a way that is not serving the protective beauty energy that you were originally doing? Very interesting. This is kind of a power energy and a strength energy that is a double-edged sword. So let's see, again, leaning a little bit on Sephiroth, but in general between these two, between beauty and victory, how do you balance those to get the best possible outcome? Queen of Coins, Rhea. Oh, it's interesting that she fell right with Kronos. She was the wife of Kronos. She was the one who protected Zeus so that the new world could come in. Seven of Wands. Eight of Wands reversed. And Ace of Wands reversed. So there's some real similarity energy to one of the other readings here, I have to say. Your loyalty needs to be to the new and beautiful thing, the precious thing. It has to be to that. That's where you should use your courage. Protecting that, not letting that being stopped. But I think that there is a really interesting question for you, and it's not being answered here because it's saying right now in terms of your psyche and what you do, that's the main thing you're focusing on. But I think that when you have the victory, you need to really engage the wisdom that you have, not to then feel that you have to keep, like how do you transition from being the challenger to something else? So it's like how do you put down the sword and then go into peace fully? Like that's going to be an interesting challenge for you. I think it may be to serve whatever is precious in a different way. You've served it through helping to challenge and bring this new thing in. It might be then how do you help sustain the legacy? Because this would be the sense of Queen of Coins more generally, which is keeping the home fires burning, like the loyalty, that kind of energy. But you're here for a challenge. You're here for a battle. You are. Then what are you loyal to? That's going to be an interesting question for you, and it probably won't be answered in this because I think it's sort of saying that's you've got to then really learn from your wisdom and not become the thing you despise. It's a thing that's really important to do if you're a challenger, if you're sort of someone who's in the arena, is not to become the thing that you are fighting. So it's just something to think about for you. So one of the things that might help with that is understanding the balance of your masculine and feminine energy in your personality. So let's have a look at that. So let's have a look at the divine feminine energy. Or actually, before we do that, let's just get a couple of other Sephiroth energies from the Tarot of Magical Correspondences to see if that will help as well. So firstly, we have Eight of Wands again. So Eight of Wands, I always put this up right. So freedom is important, and like going always to what is your life path, what connects you back to the divine. One of the interesting things, and you really need to think about this because you have a lot of magical power. One of the things that people often, I'm not sure if they completely misunderstand with Crowley or whether he did actually mean it in the different way, but when Crowley talked about do what thou wilt, that actually has a derivation back to ancient philosophy. It also was very much looked at by Immanuel Kant. Immanuel Kant did a thing called the categorical imperative, and it effectively said that we have the way to be truly free is to follow the will. The will must be aligned in Hod with the divine. So it's not a license to do anything. It's a freedom from all the things that would stop us from doing what is true to ourselves. The ego things and the desires and the passions and the temptations. And I think I talked about this a bit in an earlier episode, but it was the ancient way that we looked at freedom. So there is something here about understanding that, about understanding the freedom always goes back to what is your essential spark. If you are faced with you've won the battle and then you've got to work out what to do next, go back to almost episode 1. What is the spark of you? What it is that you're meant to do? Staying in alignment with that will give you the sort of forward momentum and the freedom. And the star, follow the North Star. And that connects your connection with the world and the upper realms with Hesod and the Sark, your victory. It comes in that. Connecting your victory to the earth and back up to the divine. Understanding the interplay of that is what is important. So now let's have a look at the divine masculine and feminine energy for you. So the divine feminine energy of your kind of psyche. Yield strategy, weakness, receptive, gentle. I think this might be a bit of an answer for you. Look at how it's protecting the precious again with the baby. I think that it's like know when to yield, know when to go that the victory has been achieved, know when to be receptive as well as being the challenger. This is very, very important. Your divine feminine energy will really help you once you've won the battle, which I think you're born to do. It's then what do you do? And then the masculine energy around it. Oh, look at this. Wizard reversed. It's understanding this. You group are very magical. It's the masculine energy It's the masculine world. It's the kind of like the will to power, all that, where you could fall into that. But if you go to the yield strategy to protect what is precious, you can balance it out. But your mind and your masculine energy and your ambition and everything is the thing that could take you into the misuse of your wisdom and your knowledge and your magic. So it's very, very important to keep remembering what this core is. Because ultimately, the other thing about this is, as I was saying, like, if you looked at Crowley sort of work and you went, it's all just sort of like do whatever you want. The reality is that is not very magical. It's not very powerful. It's quite weak. You would weaken yourself if that was the case. Being able to yield is a very strong thing. But there is for this group that you come in with enormous power and great magical ability, but it's like you really have to be careful because it is a double-edged sword. And it's interesting, there was a similar energy that came up in one of the through lines of the soul activation series. I think that people who are magical there's a lot of moral ambivalence. So you're needing to deal with that and draw on that wisdom to help with that pole too. You can also draw on the wisdom of the angels. So we're going to have a look at the archangels that are involved here. So for Sephiroth, we have Michael and Raphael. And for Nasak, we have Haniel. So we're just going to get some messages from them. We're going to get 3 cards for Michael and Raphael because there's 2 of them, and then we're going to get 2 cards for Haniel. So what would Michael and Raphael want to say to you about staying back to the core of what you're doing, protecting the precious thing, challenging for a cause, not just for the sake of the battle? 5 of Swords, Page of Pentacles, 4 of Wands. Okay. Know when to leave the battlefield. Like, it's a message over and over for you. You may have to be on the battlefield any number of times as a challenger, but know when to leave the battlefield. Be strategic about it. There will also be a point at which whatever it is that you were protecting has grown enough that it can look after itself. So again, I felt like that regent for a king or queen to be, that kind of thing. There's a sort of sense of know when to step away and allow what you've created to grow on its own. And keep in mind the harmony with others and the heart and what is beautiful about that. Okay. That's where the healing is as well too. It's like the warrior going home and being with their family. That is a wonderful reward. You don't have to be in the battle all the time. And then Haniel, looking at using the wisdom for the victory. We have Knight of Wands and Queen of Swords reversed. You don't turn on yourself when there is no longer a battle. That's part of the thing. Because otherwise you will internalize the battle and you'll start to challenge yourself all the time. Part of you is the forward momentum all the time. And so it's sort of like this is part of the wisdom of knowing what to do next, so that you don't turn on yourself, because there is a possibility of doing that. Very interesting energy that you have to deal with, part 2. Within your psyche, within what you're trying to balance within your psyche. So let's sort of see at its most pure by looking at the angels and the demons of the Kabbalah in terms of the best possible outcome and the most challenging outcome of your psyche around being a challenger. So for Sephiroth, for the beauty, for the joy, for the protecting of the precious, the angel energy is Luia, fruition and realization of dreams. Yes, you're going to win. I think this is the thing. You are going to win. So knowing you're going to win might actually help, because then you can almost start to think about what do you do after you've done it? What is your reward? The challenge of that is solace, forgetfulness and release of unpleasant thoughts. You may be worried that if you stop having a challenge or you stop having a battle that you may forget who you are, but you won't. It's knowing you won't do that and thinking ahead about it so that you know what you would want to do next. And then around that wisdom, applying that wisdom to do it. The angel is Ayazal, loyalty. Yeah, loyalty, staying loyal to the cause, just doing it in a different way. The issue that you might have to deal with Belith is wastrels and vagabonds, going, well, if I won my battle, I just walk away. Like, what do I do now? Like, I really think there is a thing of like, what would loyalty look like? What does it mean? How do you stay loyal to something you've protected without becoming a controller of it, so becoming the thing that you were trying to protect it against. But equally, you don't want to walk away. You don't want to just leave it. So like, what do you do to be loyal in a different way? I think that's what you're going to have to find for your psyche to feel balanced in what you're doing, pole 2. Okay. So when we go to the last episode, which is when the rubber really hits the road and we're in the material world, there will be a lot about ego and temptation and balance, all those sort of things. So I felt that the way to lead into that would be to get a major arcana from the Ego Observer deck. It's a particularly psychologically resonant deck, and I think perfect for the energy. We'll use it in the fourth reading, actually. So I just wanted to get a major arcana deck to give a bit of a translation of your psyche energy here, and then how that may operate manifesting in the real world. So I'm just dealing out till I get a major arcana. We got the Lovers. So relationship, caring, love, the heart. For some of you, the precious may be a great love, and you have to go for the challenge. But once you've got that, what do you do? How do you turn that into happy families, potentially? For others, it is just how you relate to people that is going to be the important thing, and the thing that will differentiate whether you've got the balance right and the wisdom right in this life. So I hope that resonates for you, pile 2. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 3, to your reading. So this reading is, as I was saying in the introduction, how your psyche is formed, the forming of your psychology, really, before it manifests in the world, and then the world interacts with it. So all the 3 stages to lead to this are very pure. They're the pure things of the formation before the material world acts on it. But this is the one where we need to bring our psyche into balance, and balance what is beautiful with where we think we could win into being truly who we are. So you chose the reading with the healer. So there is something in your psyche that resonates with being a healer, healing yourself, healing others, that being something that you feel naturally drawn to. But the interesting thing when I look at Sephiroth's energy here, which is what is beautiful, what is the Christ consciousness, what you would bring joy, and then also where you have victory, which is Nasak, how you could best achieve your purest form and in a victorious way, they're both the signs of a psychic. So the healing is maybe how you would best or most want to use psychic ability, but you guys are psychic off the charts. And in your psychology, that is a big part of it, and dealing with that is a big part of it. You may sometimes actually need to heal yourself because of that. You may need to have boundaries and so forth to not be overwhelmed by the ability. You are prophetic, you're a seer, you have a connection of the mystical to the spiritual and to the psychic. Yeah, you're all of that. Your psyche is all about being the psychic in one form or another. So that's an interesting thing to balance, because it is both incredibly inclusive with others and with the wave and the timing of life, but it also can be a bit isolating because it can be overwhelming. So I think that this may be some of the sort of balance and challenge that we need to look at. St. Teresa was a saint who was a mystic, wrote on spirituality, had many psychic abilities, all of that kind of thing. Had the stigmata, could levitate, like the whole box and dice. So there's but it's very much connected to her spiritual belief. You find joy and beauty in connecting your psychic ability to a spiritual belief, a spiritual connection to the divine. It's not, you don't take joy in it and, I'm just cleverer than everybody and here's a party trick I can do. The beauty of it is the connection to the spiritual, which is good. It's very important to have that, I think, when you have psychic ability. And then how you have victory is your capacity to see what's coming way ahead of it. This is Nostradamus' premonition, one of the most well-known and famous seers that ever has existed, prophets that's ever existed. So you have a sense of what is coming in. So if you are using healing, you would be very good at seeing the sort of sense of the energies that need to come in to do that. I often say that high magicians say that the true prophets of the world understand the past very well, and that's how they can see the patterns into the future. So you have that sense. I would say you've been a psychic in many lives, to be honest. And if you don't believe in reincarnation, then it's somewhere in your ancestral line. This ability has come down through it, because you are going to be able to see what's coming way ahead of other people. And that's the main way that you can use these powers and these energies well. The other thing that I would get from Nostradamus too is that he is one of the famous seers or psychics because he worked for the Medicis. So he was able to see, and this is the victory, how to use his psychic ability, his astrological ability, all of those things in a way that kept him safe and valued within a medieval court, and that is no mean feat. So your ability to do that should make you able to deal with the modern world and what we're dealing with in the modern world as well, and whatever you might see and so forth. But you wouldn't be able to avoid it. This is not the psyche of someone who would go, I don't want to look at low vibrational things. In fact, if that's what you feel, then this isn't the right pile for you. Find one of the other piles, because the prophets cannot help it. Prophets have to see what is coming in, and it's like it'd be like an open wound unless you did see it. But the beauty about it is that you can use it to be victorious, and you can use it to heal others. When I'm saying like the psychic energy, if it's a bit like an open wound with you, your capacity to see the future, your capacity to see the patterns and plan ahead of time is something that can really help you with that, and help if you're trying to heal others. Let's see what other, so Sephiroth, as I say, is joy, this is victory. Let's see what other Sephiroth might be important to your psyche. Hod. So this is about your life path, and that makes sense. You know, the psychic ability, the connection very, very strongly, the spirituality, that's Hod really all over. It's like my splendor, my thoughts, my sense of self, my life path, where I find reason and clarity, it's all connected to the divine. You know, the more that I do what the divine wants from me, the more that I'm in alignment. So that's a very strong energy. Marcus Aurelius quote here, you have the power over your own mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. So you know this, you know why you need to use your psychic ability to understand outside events and what's coming, because you don't have power over that, but you can understand it and you can see it in the weave of what you're meant to do and what you might heal in yourself and in others. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to have a bit of a look at each of these. We're going to look at Sephiroth on a couple of levels. Firstly, as what brings you joy and beauty. And then we'll also, when we combine the two, Sephiroth sits in what they call the middle pillar. So it is a balancing force of some of the other Sephiroth. So we'll look at how it balances joy and wisdom and victory. And then we're also going to have a look at Nasak as your victory, as how you have the victory using these prophetic abilities. And then, as I say, we'll join it together. So let's have a look first at this sort of highly spiritual energy. You have joy in the spiritual gifts. You have joy in your spiritual connection. That matters to you more than earthly things. What we get is the Nine of Swords reversed, the Nine of Cups reversed, and Death reversed. Wow. Okay. Then in terms of Nasak, the victory in being a seer, a prophet, the power of premonition, the Tower reversed, the High Priestess reversed, the Ace of Swords. Oh, God. Wow. Okay. All right. So this is where the healing energy is coming in now. It's starting to make sense. Here for you and what is beautiful for you. You have a kind of ascetic energy, I have to say. You not that you necessarily want to run away and join a monastery, but maybe you would. But with Nine of Cups reversed, you're not finding beauty in just having some wish for yourself. You're finding it in alleviating the pain and the mental anguish and the fear and the guilt of others. It's like reconnecting people back. This is what you would be able to do. You would be able to heal people by reconnecting them back with their life path and so forth. So it's less about just what do they want emotionally, but it's like what frees them? What is stopping them from making decisions? You find pleasure in that. You find joy and beauty in that. It's a very psychological process. Many of you may be in some sort of therapeutic psychological work or have a natural tendency towards doing that in whatever you do. You live between the worlds a lot too. With death reversed, you're probably mediums. But you kind of have your 1 foot in this world and 1 foot in the other dimensions at all times. But you're not interested in personal pleasure so much as relieving the mental, psychological agitation that you feel around you. You feel that's what you're meant to do. Then when we look at how you win, like we've got Ace of Swords showing this chaos here, the new idea, the being ahead of the beat. This is the prophet. The thing that would seem to be chaos because you're talking about the new, the big that's coming through, the change that's inevitable. Change that's inevitable, but because you have the capacity to see it ahead of time with the tower, you can get in before the tower falls and you can incrementally make the changes as necessary. You can create order out of chaos. Actually, this is what this is talking about, and bring the psychic up to the surface and make it real. So that's, you have that idea of what's coming. So therefore the tower doesn't have to fall. It can be shifted and changed. And the psychological and the psychic energy is brought to the surface to create that. It's interesting with Persephone reversed here too, because I feel like with all these reversals, I feel like, as I say, you spend a lot of your time in the other dimensions. I feel like you spend a lot of the time in the underworld, actually, and not in a bad way, but it's almost like Persephone, you would spend periods of time, like the winter months or whatever, not that it's literally the winter months, but like something like that. There would be periods of time where you go into the dark night of the soul, you go into the underworld, all of that kind of thing. That's partly where you're getting this psychic ability from, but in a positive way. It's not negative. It's a capacity to do that. It's a very Plutonian energy. That's part of this for you as well. You have a very rich interior life and a very rich spiritual life. So how do we balance it all together? How does Sephiroth as the middle pillar help balance what you find joyful and what you would find victory in for your psyche? Pile 3. The Chariot, 2 of Coins, the Hanged Man. Oh, okay. Wow. And the King of Cups. Boy, you are a healer. But boy, you kind of make it hard for yourself, I've got to say. Firstly, let's look at the joy and the niceness. Like there is creativity, there is the sun energy, there is what is beautiful. You ultimately, you are moving towards your destiny. You see a joy and a beauty in that. And you understand you have lots of choices because you have the information you need to make choices. It's not such a mystery to you. But you have a tendency, or you have a side of you that would sacrifice yourself for others. With the Hanged Man, with Prometheus, he brought wisdom to others. This is what prophets do. They bring wisdom. They're not always thanked for it. The gods did not thank Prometheus. They chained him to a rock and had a vulture eat his liver out each day just for daring to bring fire to mankind. But there is this sort of sense that you would sacrifice yourself for others, for the more beatific. There's something very beatific about you, actually. It's probably why they talk about spiritual ecstasy with that saint. And there's the healer. The only risk that you have around all of this is becoming the wounded healer. So it's like, don't sacrifice so much to heal others for the sheer spiritual beauty of it all, and knowing that you can sort of see what's coming more than others. It's like, bring that into balance. Remember to have joy yourself, I think, is the important thing here. Very powerful, I have to say. So let's get the magical correspondences deck and let's see what other Sephirothic energy is important to your psyche. Temperance. Yeah, well, that makes sense. Getting it in balance. Balance is really important here because you live in a number of worlds at any given time. And as I say, the healer can become the wounded healer. It's how you bring that into balance. Tippereth is very important to understand. What is the joy that you're getting out of this, and what joy are you denying yourself? Like, is there a kind of a, it feels very beatific, as I say. It feels like the joy of denial or whatever, but like that is not, you don't need to do that. I think this is what this is saying. Hesod is connecting you to the earth. How this sort of energy, how do you connect safely to the earth? It's very important for you to understand that so that you don't put yourself through more than you have to. The balance of this is very important. So then The Five of Coins, radical intelligence. Yezirah, the discipline to remember what makes sense here. But look, really, I really do want to say to you, there is such a self-sacrifice energy here. Do not take it to its extreme. Use your prophetic ability to also protect yourself, because ultimately what you bring is a bit too precious to be in a situation where you've kind of denied yourself too much. There is a balance to bring this in. And I think the Chariot Apollo, creativity, beauty, that kind of thing, is going to be very important for you to understand so that you're not isolated, because prophets can be isolated as well. Let's have a look at your masculine and feminine balance and see how that is operating with your psyche. So the feminine sort of energy for you. Stealth strategy, disappear, inconspicuous, hide. Yeah, I do think you do need to have a bit of stealth. Don't sacrifice yourself. This is what it keeps saying to me. I think you have in past lives. Don't do it. You have the wisdom and the ability to avoid doing that and to come out with a good outcome. You're able to navigate chaos and bring it into order in the ways that most can't do. But don't feel that somehow you've got to be like Prometheus and sacrifice all for it. What's the masculine energy in your psyche? Aggressor. Yeah, I think that this is where this is not working for you. It's like there's a side of you that worries that you would be an aggressor because you can see these things in the future and all that. This is what kind of flips and makes you self-sacrifice, but a stealth strategy rather than an aggressive energy is the way to do it. Then you won't find yourself in that situation. It's an interesting thing. It's like there's a side of you that almost feels that underneath everything, even though you're sort of seeing the future and you're doing all this sort of thing in spiritual, that there's a side of you that just gets angry with what you're seeing. So instead of looking at how to balance and use that, knowing what you know and having a stealth strategy to bring in and create the better thing, it's almost like you sacrifice yourself just to prove that you were right. But you're going to be right anyway, Pile 3. So there's a very important message here for you, because when we get to part 4, it's going to be very important to be able to integrate this energy in a way that works for you. Because we need the prophets, we need people like you. We don't want you denying yourself too much. Okay, so let's get you some messages from the archangels, see if that will help. So the archangels for Tiphereth are Michael and Raphael, and the archangel for Nasak is Haniel. So we're going to get 3 cards of messages for Michael and Raphael, because there's 2 of them, and then we're going to get 2 cards for Haniel. So let's see what they have to say. So what do Michael and Raphael want to say to you? Pile 3. 4 of Swords. Yeah, heal yourself as well. Page of Swords. 8 of Wands reversed. I think this is all about understanding the environment in which you're delivering your messages, because you're very, very psychic. It's like, make sure that you protect yourself, heal yourself before you take a message out. Everything doesn't have to be done in a hurry. Eventually, sometimes with Nostradamus, you'll know the time is of the essence, but by and large, in most things, you can take the time to contemplate and feel strong enough to bring the message out. Don't feel like you have to sort of jump to everybody else's demands. Then when we look at Haniel in terms of using your prophetic ability for your victory, she says 5 of Wands reversed, 2 of Pentacles reversed. She says to you that where there is resistance to what you're saying, don't try and force a choice. There will come a point where there isn't resistance anymore, when people catch up. In the meantime, you can have been working behind the scenes, developing the strategies and the tower reversed energy. People will catch up. You don't need to force it, and you don't need to sacrifice yourself. Just wait. Eventually, the truth of what you're saying will come to the fore and be seen. There is a way, Pile 3, where truth does come to the surface in the end. Might take a while, but it does. So I think that Haniel wants you to sort of not feel you're responsible for that just because you can see it ahead of people. Sometimes you just have to wait for them to catch up. Okay. So let's also see what other angels and also sort of like demon counterpart energy for your psyche is important. So with the angels, it's the best version of what you could do. With the demon energy, it's what you have to be aware of could be a temptation in your psyche. So firstly, we have Imamaya, atonement of errors. Okay, this is interesting. Maybe some of this, maybe the self-sacrificial thing is where you think you've got it wrong, you've misapplied your knowledge, you haven't told the right people or something. So this is just saying allow yourself to atone that. You don't have to be right all the time. You don't have to be heard all the time. You need to sort of understand how to balance that energy. Where it could be a challenge is LOCs, pride. So yeah, it's like the pride. Well, I want to be right. I am right. I am right. So, but you might be far too hard on yourself if you got something wrong in terms of timing or a prophecy or something. It'll probably right itself in the end, but you do need to be aware of that energy when you have these abilities. And we have Anil, breaking the circle. So yeah, this is like kind of like coming out of patterns, understanding the patterns, seeing the patterns, order out of chaos, all of that kind of thing is at its best. Where it challenges you, Phoenix, fraud and misrepresentation. Like this is about the environment that you're in and about how you present yourself when you present and what you're sure about. It's certainly saying don't say you're sure about something when you're not. Don't feel that you have to have an answer for everything. Things will come to the surface for you and they'll come to you ahead of others, but you don't have to be on some time frame that everybody else is demanding. So things have to, timing is always the hardest thing actually with prophecy and with reading. So just be aware of that and don't give yourself too hard a time in what you're trying to do with all of this. Okay, so last but not least, we're going to get a card from the Ego Observer Tarot because your psyche energy, the ego is certainly part of it, but it really comes into being when we're in the material world. That's where the ego and temptations and all those sort of things can either take us on the wrong path or if we deal with them in a healthy way can really fulfill what we're trying to achieve. So I felt that was a good way to have a card to lead into the into the fourth and last episode of the series. So I'm just going to deal out till I get a major arcana card for you. Well, that's interesting. That came up for some others. So judgment. And it makes a lot of sense. Again, awareness. This is all about judgment. This is all about understanding when to speak and how to speak. This is your third eye. This is you psychic on steroids. You do have a calling. You are here for a reason. All of those things are true. But judgment is also about, good judgment for ourselves, about when to speak, how to speak, and so forth. So I hope that resonates for you. It's a very interesting energy. You're very interesting people, pile 3. You probably have a very interesting calling. But a lot of challenges that are associated with that because of how people operate with this sort of energy. And as I say, I think you're a bit hard on yourself. So something to be aware of. So I hope you enjoyed the reading. I hope it resonated. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in the 4th episode.